Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fifth Meeple Board Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Chris, the intellectual introvert, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
And the deluxeifier.
Hello, it's Pete.
Today, we're focusing on a pair of historic giants. We'll start with a flair for philanthropy, initiating networks, producing projects, and declaring donations as we mirror the life of Carnegie. Then we set sail southward, gallivanting through the Galapagos, constructing campsites and stockpiling specimens as we recreate Darwin's journey. And finally, because we just can't help ourselves, it's every beard for himself as we pit these games against each other in our ultimate showdown, the Battle of the Funnest. Before we start this historic discussion, David, what's our topic of discussion for today?
Yeah, so Valentine's Day is actually right around the corner. And so my question to you guys is, do you guys do anything as far as board games are related when you have Valentine's Day? Maybe it's a game that you play with your wife, or you're hoping to play with your wife, or do you do anything to incorporate board games into this special holiday season?
Pete, I'm letting you go first because my wife doesn't really play games with me. So I got to figure out how am I going to address answering this question.
So I'll start off. Usually there's a couple holidays where I do not try to game. One of them is Mother's Day. The other one is Valentine's Day. I generally don't play on those weekends. Those are for her special day. So I try not to dive into anything like that. I would rather spend some quality time with my wife and do things that she enjoys. So I really don't do anything. Chris, what's your thoughts on it?
So I mentioned my wife doesn't do a whole lot of gaming with me. There are a couple games that she will occasionally play, but I'm similar. Hey, if it's Valentine's Day, I'm not pushing her for anything, but often she'll look at me and say, hey, it's your Valentine's Day too. And she will offer to play something with me, typically one of the one or two games that she likes, but maybe it's going to be a 30-minute game, but she'll let me scratch that itch rather than, doing something else.
For me this year, I'm going to try to get my wife to play. She doesn't like to play games that much either. Normally, I'll try to do a puzzle or something with her. She likes puzzling, but I'm going to try to get her to play Agent Avenue. It's a game that I played over the holiday season. It's a 2-player kind of game. I think you could play on teams and go up to more, but it's really a game where you're putting down one card face up and one card face down, and the other person has to pick which one they're going to do. And it's kind of like a little chase around the board. You're trying to catch their person and they're trying to catch you. And so it's really interesting. It's kind of a little bit set collection, but you're trying to see if you could read the other person. Are they giving you the better card face up, or, is the one face down actually the better card for you? So it's really fun. It's really fast, like 10-minute game, but hopefully she'll play it with me this year.
So I have a proposition for you guys, and this is not me saying let's play this together. Okay, let me be clear about this. But we had a party at my house the other day. It was college friends, people that my wife and I had both gone to college with. And so we had 8 of us around the table, and we were hosting. So my wife's like, hey, get a game and we'll play a game at some point. And we played Flip 7. And it was just easy to learn. Everybody's getting it. But this is the group that it is. Somehow the concept of strip Flip 7 came up. So it was like, it's not Flip 7, it's Strip 7. And the concept was, we didn't play this, but the concept was, okay, if you bust, you got to take a piece of clothes off. So maybe that is something to play.
Oh, man, you're going to start something here.
Day or otherwise. What do you think? Strip 7.
Boy, I could just see the at dark, Flip 7 at dark version. It's probably going to come out now. You should have coined it first.
I should have.
Maybe if I was 20 years younger, I'd be more more apt to try that. But I have to see who we're playing with too.
It does make busting more interesting, though.
Yes. All right. Well, those are our opinions on Valentine's Day gaming and stripping games and everything else. We'd love to know what all of you out there have to say. Let us know by sending us an email to fifthmeeple@gmail.com, following us on social media, or checking out our website at fifthmeeple.com. And if you really want to help us grow, spread the word, tell your friends about our podcast, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. All right, guys, I've got bills to pay, so let's start this project with a discussion of Carnegie. Carnegie is a 1-to-4 player action retrieval network building game that puts you in charge of a company, recruiting employees and expanding your business while also contributing to the country's greatness through your generosity. The game board consists of a United States map divided into 4 regions with several major and minor cities connected by routes. Players also have their own personal board with 5 permanent departments and plenty of room to expand with project tabs that extend out of the side. Each round, the active player chooses one of 4 timelines to activate. This first triggers an event, which is either income from one of the 4 regions or the opportunity to donate, paying money to claim specific end-game bonuses. Then, the department associated with the timeline is activated, with all corresponding departments on a player's board becoming available to use. Both the active player and all other players participate in each, in turn order. Some actions allow players to send their employees on missions, placing them in specific regions to be eligible for income on later turns. Some actions also allow projects to be built, establishing networks across the map and unlocking additional income potential. Other actions allow players to progress on tech tracks, make new projects available, move employees, gain resources, and so on. Play proceeds for 20 rounds, after which players increase their VP total based on their active employees, new departments built, projects completed, their cities and network on the map, and from their donations. The player with the most points wins the game, but donates all their winnings anonymously to their favorite charity. Carnegie was designed by Xavier George and was first published in 2022 by Quinted Games. All right, guys, what is it about Carnegie that makes you want to open up your checkbook?
All right, well, I'm going to kick this one off because if you listen to our top games of the year, this was my number one. It actually moved up from, I believe, 3 or 4 to number 1. And part of that was because I did a lot of plays on BGA, and I really just enjoyed that. The thing that I really like about this game is there really isn't any dice rolling. There's no cards flipping over and having to act. Every decision that you make matters. And you can set yourself up. You have to do some planning. So to me, this is one of those games that there's perfect information out there other than what Chris might do as his action, but I can guess or take some logical thoughts on what he may do. Now David's going to do something totally different anyway, so he's going to get on his own track. But those are the things that I really like about this game. I think there's a few other games out there similar where there's not many there's just no randomness in it other than, again, setting up initially. But that's going to change how that game plays out. And there's just so much with that. When we set the game up, the games feel totally different. You really have to analyze the game before it even starts. I just really enjoy that. And that's one of the things to me that is just super about this game.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. I think there's a lot to like about this game. If you like a tight Euro, this is definitely there. Every action that you make, you're going to either pay the price for later or it's going to go well in your favor. And to me, this game comes down to a lot about timing. I know there's a lot of different things we do in here, but it's when you do those things and the timing that you do it, I feel like really sets the difference a lot of in this game. You're talking about trying to be able to predict what somebody else is going to do. I think, as far as like the main action goes for each round, that prediction of what you think people are going to do and the timing of which you're doing different actions, I really think, it's always a heads up game because you're looking constantly around other players' boards because it's all, information's just in the open and seeing, there might be a move that you're going to do that might not be super great for you, but it's not great for anybody else. So you're going to go ahead and take that move. And the more you play this game, the more you learn how to play the game that way. It's not always about efficiency, but it's about cutting other people off from their efficiencies is how I figure out this game to be the more I play it. And so I like it. I think there's a multitude of ways to win. And there's a race element in there about going for those goals, making those donations to get up on that goal track. And you can really push and pull that action selection mechanism to the way that you want it to go, where it's beneficial for you, but detrimental to others. And you can really plan that out. And there's a lot of strategic play in here. And I really do like that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk some about that when we get to the next segment of the show for how I feel about it. This is not my number 1 game, Pete. And again, we'll talk about that. But there's still some things I like about it. One of them, the project tracks that slide out of the player boards. I mean, from a production standpoint, they're cool. But I also think that it's well incorporated as a mechanism with the theme. You do research and development. When you do research and development, that R&D opens up the possibility of another project. That's sliding your projects out, which you then have to execute. And you do that through other actions, sending people out, bringing them back. I think it's really, really well done in the theme. And as you play it more, all of those things make more sense as you do them. So I can appreciate that both from a production and a theme standpoint.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on here too with the rule book. If you are somebody that really likes a good rule book, I feel like Carnegie has a really good rule book, especially because everything's numbered in the game. So if you're playing with a little bit of the expansions or different tiles. I mean, there are very clear language. You can look up that one. I love when rulebooks do this. Like number 17, what does that actually say? How does it actually play? And I think that every rulebook should be like this, especially when you're using tiles that are a little bit complicated or might get confusing. It's really easy if you just take the time to be like, hey, 15, this is what it is. And we could all just read it really quick and then move on. I really do like this rulebook a lot.
Yeah, I like it when rulebooks do that too. There's what's the name of the Grand Austria Hotel does a great job with that too, and there's several other. I think we played Apiary, and it was the same thing. You didn't have to guess about what a certain tile did, and just make up your own rule. That's what we're going to go with. It's clear.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to say is if you are playing 2 or 3 players, one of the downsides of this game is the initial setup. David, I know when we came over, there's some initial setup. You have to kind of randomize what's going on. I do want to say there is a link to an app that one of the fans made, which makes the setup a breeze. You can say which things you want to do. It really random. It just tells you which things to cover up, and it really solves some of that downtime. I will include the link in our show for anybody who might be interested in it because I use it all the time, especially if you're at 2 or 3 players.
Yeah, and while you're talking about the setup, Pete, I didn't have to do any of the setup, but I wanted to touch on now. This is an expansion thing, so I don't think this is base game, but this is part of the expansion, and that is there's an option in the expansion to do variable starting resources, and so you have a certain amount of gravitas, money, whatever you want to call it. You can only choose certain amount of total resources, and you spend them how you want. Do you want more cubes? Do you want more money? Whatever the case may be. I thought that was really interesting. Maybe try to set yourself up. I want to try to play this game a different way this time. I'm going to set myself up a little better for it. If you're me, you're still going to screw it up and you're not going to do well. And your last 3 turns are going to be worthless. But it was at least interesting to try to set myself up and then still fail.
Yeah, that was the first time that I played with that expansion. And right after we played that, I was out searching and I think I have it in a couple of carts. I don't know. I pulled the trigger on it just yet, but that really did. I don't want to say it changed up the game a lot, but it really even gave you more decisions at the beginning of the game. If you've played it a lot like I have, it was kind of a fresh change to the start of the game.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening, you never played it before. I would say it's an expansion because they call it an expansion, but it's more like a variant than an expansion because you're really just doing one little thing to kind of differentiate at the beginning of the game. It's not like a full blown what many people think would be an expansion. I would say it's more of a variant, but they call it an expansion, so therefore it is.
Yeah, I would think the variable starting is something you wouldn't need the expansion to do. The other pieces I think that come with that, maybe the extra is it the same expansion, David, that has the extra departments and things?
Yeah, I think they're all together in there. I didn't even know it was an expansion when I was playing it. I guess my copy just had those in there. I just thought it was a variant more than an expansion. But yeah, there are some different tiles and some other stuff. And then Pete was like, no, it's an expansion. So it definitely is an expansion, but it feels like a variant more than just like a full blown expansion in certain ways.
The other thing that I like about this game is I don't want to say you get a ticket to ride feel, but as you're expanding across that map of the United States, it can be very challenging. And there's quite a bit of interaction and you can be cut off from areas and you might have to really change some of your decisions on what you're doing as Chris is waving his hands there. I think we played fairly nice the last time we did that because you are trying to really maximize what you're trying to do. But there is that I always talk, I like that interaction. This is one of them where you can get in each other's way. And it kind of goes to that business. Back in the day, there was a little ruthless. Those business moguls back then, they weren't all best friends when it came down to making money.
I don't know that it's just back then, Pete, but you were kind to me. And I think the last game we played was on Board Game Arena. We played 2-player game, and I think you had an opportunity to cut me off, and you didn't. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, that's one of my cons, but I'll get to there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cons, is there anything about Carnegie that makes you feel like maybe that your donation was a scam?
You want to go first, Chris? I'll let you go first.
I got a list. I'll start just, hey, we talked a little bit about having to plan through things. And I just get frustrated when I play this game, especially at the higher player counts when so many of the action selections are not yours, but you have to follow. It's a bit too far for me on having to predict and react to what other people choose to do to accomplish things. And like you said, David, you can You can, and I admittedly, I'm looking at your boards and saying, okay, what action can I take now so that you can't get squat? And that's never the case because y'all figure it out. And I'm sitting there and say, okay, there's nothing to do there. Now, as I play more, I do get better at it. But I feel like I'm maybe a little too frustrated as I play it. Do I want to keep playing it to get to the point where maybe I can better predict and manage my movements? Or do I want to choose one of the other 100, 200, 300 really excellent games that aren't going to frustrate me while I try to get to the point where I can enjoy it? I feel better now.
I mean, I will say there's a lot of, different processes in the game that are linked together in subtle ways. And so if you don't make those connections, I think sometimes you're like, well, how do I get this? A new player a lot of times will be like, how do I get this resource? It's not directly obvious how you get things. And I think that that's kind of like the more you play, the more you see these little connections that work in your benefit. I will say though, one of my cons for this game is that depending on your player group, we tend to be nice, but depending on the player group, this can be a really cutthroat game. And I don't know if we've played it that way yet. Part of me kind of wants to, but I think we're always too afraid to start that war, because once somebody cuts somebody off, and there's a lot of times sometimes when I play this game, I'm like, I can't believe nobody's cutting anybody off on this map.
One of our
You
games,
know,
somebody cut me off in the West. I can't remember who. Somebody cut me off in the West.
I don't think it was me, but there is definitely that thing going on because I do think that this game, I like playing it at 4 players. I think this game plays really well at 4. And to me, that's the ideal player count. I like that high level of interaction with 4 players on the board. I think there's a lot going on. And I think that sometimes it's like you don't want to start a war, even though the game's kind of made that way because I feel like if you start a war in this game, that those 2 players will go at each other and they'll basically cancel each other out. And it's very hard to win, I think, in most games like that because people tend to take stuff personal for some reason when you're playing the game while you're playing the game. And I just find it to be, when do you actually want to start it? And if you do start something, can you do it in a way where, the other person can't react as well? Because I do think that there is a timing. This whole game to me is just about timing. When do you do things? And how do you do it? And making Chris frustrated because he has to follow what we say, and that's probably why I really like this game.
I guess.
Yeah, the two things that I would say to piggyback on the last thing, if you get off cycle on it, you feel like you lost a turn or two till you can kind of get back in with what everybody else is doing. You got to leave yourself a little bit of wiggle room. So if you don't get that optimal move, you can at least do something. But sometimes that just doesn't happen. The other thing that I would say is because of that, there is the analysis paralysis that can really happen when you're trying to figure out, well, you're trying to plan for the future, but it's like, what do I do? And if you don't have any really good options or you're not following the lead of everybody else, you can really just kind of keep digging your hole and you're not going to get out of it. So those are my opinions on the downsides of the game.
Yeah. Well, David, you were talking about timing, and I agree the game is definitely all about timing. But speaking of time, I feel like the last turn is often in our games a waste of my time. How many times in our games we're like, okay, well, I just don't want to do anything to let you do anything. I'm taking the HR action and, move some people around and get your benefits or something like that. I don't know. In other cases, I remember choosing something that I knew I couldn't do anything with just because anything else I chose, someone else was going to get more benefit out of it than me, which I guess is just part of the regular game. But again, it's another reason for me not to want to start it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is why I like playing with 4 players as opposed to like a 3 or 2 player count because everybody gets that little token that they could either keep and turn in for 3 points, or one time during the game, they could choose to turn that token in and take any action they want. They don't have to follow. And I feel like that's why I like playing at 4 players is because it gives that, especially that last turn you're talking about, Chris. If you have that token because you play this game a lot, it allows you to do something to maximize regardless of what anybody else does. So it kind of blunts that a little bit. But again, a lot of times if you're playing 3 players, only that last player gets that. And to me, that's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, but I stink at this game. And so I usually waste that token earlier in the game and sit there and kick myself in the bum because I don't still have it.
Yeah, that's
Man, I'm
just on
salty.
you.
I'm salty today.
Another con about this game though is that we have this huge building. Okay, I don't know if you guys feel this way. I played this game, I feel like, a decent amount of times, and we have this huge building and you're supposed to fill it with different offices and different things, departments, and I never even get close to filling this building. And it's frustrating to me because I'm like, is there a strategy out there? And maybe there's a lot of you that have played this game a lot and you're like, I fill up the whole building and I win. I just don't see it. I don't know how it's viable. I feel like there's a ton of empty space always on that building. No matter how I try to fill it up, I feel like, I don't know if that's just a fool's errand, but there is a lot of space there, and for whatever reason, it's just not satisfying because I'm like, I never completely can get close to filling up. It reminds me of Isle of Cats, where I can't fill up my whole ship at all. It's just really frustrating. You're like, I'll never be able to do this puzzle. But I don't know if it's designed that way. And it might be. It might just be a fool's errand to try to do that.
Yeah, the only other thing with respect to that board that I'm thinking of is you want to put things up at the top, but then when you get there, I personally, again, because I haven't played enough and I don't want to, I can't get anything up there. And there is I don't know if it's in the expansion or the regular. There's an extra lobby where you can put people in this one, but then I never want to waste a turn to get that. And again, that's me learning. Well, maybe it's not really wasting a turn. It's to unlock some other things. But that leads me to my last negative, and I was debating, do I even say this, because I think it's really my ignorance of how to play the game. But I have here that I think a few of the department tiles are overpowered, but I think it's more so that I don't know yet enough how to find those combinations, which maybe while they're not overpowered, I think there are a few that in combination allow someone who is really familiar with the game to destroy someone who is not as familiar with the game. And I'm thinking of one game, David, where you had a couple of things that combo together, did an amazing job of being able to get, I can make cheap donations, but then I can also put donations on top of people that already made the donation, so no one can block me. And then you had some other thing that was it was just like, oh my, there's no way we're catching up in this one. And now could I have found a combination? Maybe. I don't know if there were two of each tiles, but I don't know the game enough, and it's one of those games where an experienced player's gonna just destroy someone who's, I think, a halfway decent player just hasn't figured this game out yet.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a little bit true. I think that you do have to pay attention. I think there's tiles that are more powerful in different situations for sure, than what you build and how you combo those things. But I do think though, it's just like you said, the more you play it, the more you the game wants you as a player to prevent another player from doing that. And so that's what kind of game it is. And so if you're going to allow somebody to do that, again, to you're saying, yeah, new players, you're going to struggle at first. I really do think that against more experienced players, that's just kind of how this game is built because there's no hidden information. I mean, it's just all out there. So that tends to be those kind of games. The more you play, the stronger you get.
Yeah, and I've said a lot of times I don't like take that in games, and maybe that's part of what maybe I don't like about this game is I don't want to use my turns to stop you from doing something. I want to use my turns to allow me to do something. And I guess that's just a more the type of game I prefer where I'm building up my engine as opposed to tearing down yours.
Yeah, I would say that's true to an extent. Yep.
All right, David, take us to the collector's corner.
Yeah, so right now, if you are interested at this game, Pete's number one game of all time right now, you can go on Amazon and buy this game for 69.48 on Amazon. I looked at some local board game stores. It's closer to around $60, so maybe you could still find a copy at your your friendly local board game store. But on the used market, I actually saw a copy for around 35 to 40 bucks. Not saying all of them are there, but there is a copy right now on BGG for $35. Chris, if you want to get really good at this game, 35 bucks, you could be in.
Don't. All right, well, keep rolling, David. What are your final thoughts on this guy?
Yeah, Carnegie is a game that I think Pete, you introduced me to this game. It feels like a couple years ago, and then we decided to bring it back to the table. And I forgot how much I really enjoy this game. Maybe it's because I get to just tell Chris what to do, and he has no choice half the time. He has to follow, and then we can screw him both ways because he doesn't know what we're picking, and just really mess with them. And to me, I really do enjoy this game. I think if you're looking for a game that everything is there and every choice you make out of the 20 rounds is going to affect you one way or the other, then this is the game for you. I mean, I like games like that. So this is right up my alley personally. It's just complex enough, not being too complex. I think there's other games that are just way over. I think this game is simple enough once you grasp the concept to just really take off. And I think the game really opens up. But I don't think it's like super, super complex like some of the other games we play. I think it's a good weight, I feel like. It's just maybe a little bit more than a medium heavy. I don't know. Maybe I'm lying about that. Passing it over to Pete.
Yeah, the things that I like about the game, as you said, perfect information that's out there. Everybody knows what's there and what might be coming. Once you figure out that cycle of workers, as we talked about, research and development, take that research and development, create those different areas that then you can send those workers out, build that map out, and then the next action when you pull those workers out, that next action that you select is going to be one of either the four different areas or a donation. And lining those up and kind of anticipating if you can expect a couple things are going to happen in the Midwest. I better have some workers out there. So when I pull back, I'm getting that income. Because if you don't have that income, that really hampers you. So once you figure out that rotation of how those workers move, it really starts to sing. At least it did for me. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about it. Chris,
Okay,
go for it.
not one of my favorite games. I recognize it's a good game, and there. I'm not sitting there saying I'm never going to play this game again. I would sit down and play this game, especially knowing how much you guys both enjoy playing it. It's not one of my favorite games. I disagree that it's a medium heavy game. I think it's a heavy game. There's no luck in here. Everything is what you do, and you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it potentially for the rest of the game, right? And get so far behind. We play a lot of heavy games. We play a lot of heavier games in this. So it's not the heaviness. I think it's just the kind of decision, the kind of prediction. I'm not good at those kind of things, is what I'm learning. I'm good at being able to figure out puzzles. Being able to figure out other people, I'm not so good at that. And so, not one of my favorite games. I'm not going to own it, but I will play it because it is a good game. There's a really good puzzle in there, but I do get frustrated when I play it. Guys, HR is calling me into their office, so it's probably a good time to head off into our discussion of Darwin's Journey. Darwin's Journey is a 1 to 4 player worker placement game that models itself after Charles Darwin's adventures through the Galapagos Islands, developing his theory of evolution. During each round, players take turns placing workers on the main action board. Many locations, however, require that the player's meeple has certain credentials, with those wax seals being earned by choosing the academy location. Other placement spots allow a player to move along island and ocean tracks, unlocking several benefits along the way, including collecting Galapagos specimens, which can later be delivered to the museum. Other placement spots impact turn order, gain resources, earn objectives for later completion, send correspondence to unlock other benefits, and a slew of other special actions. At the end of each round, there's a reward phase based on correspondence actions, as well as specific round end VP bonuses that change from game to game and can be impacted by your progress along the ocean track. After 5 rounds, the game ends, and players increase their scores from their personal board, a theory of evolution track, leftover coins, and leftover temporary knowledge tokens. The player with the most points wins the game and declares the other players to never have evolved past the Neanderthal stage. Darwin's Journey was designed by Simone Luciani and Nestor Mangoni and was first published in 2023 by Thunder Griff Games. All right, guys, Darwin's Journey. What is it about this game that makes you want to set sail to snag some specimens?
Well, I'll start off. The exploration of this game as you start moving through these Galapagos Islands, you start off exploring one and then you get to go to another. I think that's a great mechanic because there's the shoot, I forget the name of the boat. What's the boat's name? The Beagle. I should know that. Having the beagle being the timer of the game, you're going to go through those rounds. And as that moves from one area to the other, that opens up different areas for it. So what I like about it is you start off with a little area to explore. You have some decisions to go through. And as things progress, you can start to expand on it and being able to do one action with another. We talk about this a lot where you have these chaining actions. This is a game where if you get the right combinations, you can really put a couple things together rather than just doing one thing. And that can be very satisfying when it comes to playing this game.
Yeah, to jump on what you just said, Pete, the combo, I feel like the combos in this game, if you can figure them out, your turn can be awesome. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things that you can do to set up those combos. It's a very combo-tastic, I feel like, game. And there's just a lot to do there if you can figure out that puzzle. If you can't, you'll be stuttering for quite a bit.
Yeah, for me, I'll shift gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about theme when we battle these together. But for me, I absolutely love this theme. I am an engineer. I love science. I love the history of it. And I think this game does a really good job of taking a theme and incorporating it nicely. You talked about Pete exploring and running along the tracks. Hey, you're moving your ship along when that ship gets to a second island, all of a sudden you can put an explorer out there. You're sending things back home. You're delivering specimens to museums. It's a theme that really speaks to me. And I think it's a game that there's a decent debate that goes on of, hey, what's most important in a game? Is it how good it looks? Is it the mechanisms? I'm a mechanism guy. I think it's got to work. But if you've got a mechanism that ties into the theme and delivers it well, that's a win for me. And I think this game does it really, really well.
Yeah, the one thing that you just pointed out to me, I think there's one thing that really stands out when I look and play this game. And what really draws me to it is those wax seals. When you start off, you have 3 different characters. You end up drafting from 4, and you may not have a character that can do everything. There might be an option that you don't have initially. And by going to that area where you kind of learn and you take that learning mechanism, and let's say you got a person who's has the red option, which gives them options to go to one location, and you can teach them to do a yellow thing. Now, what that really does is that opens up a worker placement for that particular person to do other placements. There may be some bonus placements where you have to have both of those colors. Now you can also spend, I think, an extra resource to change the color of one. I think you have like a bonus purples that you can spend that you can use as kind of like a wild card if you need to. I just love that mechanic. And as you're also building those, kind of teaching those people, they become better at things, which gives them more powerful movements when you go out because now maybe there's 4 seals on them. When they go out and take an action, they get to do something extra as well. So I really, really love that mechanic, and it's incorporated very well theme wise for me. It's a big plus.
Yeah, 1000% for me on this one, Pete. I mean, a lot of games, hey, you have to go up a tech tracks, and those tech tracks allow you to do certain things. But this game, it doesn't allow everybody to do certain things. Those seals, you're applying them to a meeple, right? And so your one meeple might have an ability to go, it can go here or there, but the other meeples can't. Right. And making that decision, when am I going to spend that meeple? Who am I going to give this ability to? I absolutely love that. Again, it's not a tech track that applies to everything. Each meeple has their own abilities. You got to decide how to train them. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, that is a very cool aspect of this game. I think this game does have a little bit of something for everybody too. There's just so many different things. It's not your standard worker placement. You can go up. There's a lot of different tracks. There's a little bit of area majority in this game where you're trying to collect stamps to win different powers during the different rounds. There's end round bonuses that you're going after, depending on how important you think they are. If you're trying to keep up with the Beagle ship on the bottom with your own ships, there's a lot of different routes you can take. And, I like any game that gives you a lot of different combinations or different ways to win. I don't know if there's just one thing. I think you have to do a variety of different things in order to win, but I'm not sure that if you do the same thing every time that you'll always come up on top. I think that there's a lot there that you can dig into, and there's a lot of different strategies that can lead to a winning outcome, which is always great.
Yeah, and to your point of, hey, there's not one thing you can do every time. Another thing I really like about this game, and it ties into that, David, and a lot of games do this. I like the way Darwin's Journey does it. Each round, at the end of the round, there's a round bonus. It might be, okay, how many campsites do you have? It might be how many specimens of a certain type do you have? And other games do that. I think it does it really well. This one reminds me of Gaia Project. I don't know if you guys have played that yet. I know it's on our docket to play. But in Gaia Project, there's each round has a certain action, and there's 2 different types. It's either every time you take this action, you get points, or for however many of these you have at the end of the round. And in this case, it's okay, at the end of the round, how many of whatever have you done? What is your score in here? How many of those? I love that because you see them all at the beginning. And in addition to doing what you're doing, those are incredibly important. You can score tons and tons of points from those. And it helps you build your strategy that, yeah, I'm going to take a different strategy this game. I normally might not do that, but I need to get tons of whatever because at the end of the 4th round, there's tons of points. And if Pete gets them and I don't, I'm hosed. And I think it does that end of round bonus really, really well. All right. Anything about Darwin's Journey that maybe makes you a little bit seasick on the Beagle?
I'll kick this one off again too. The little gripe that I have is the actual tokens that are out there for me are a little difficult to tell apart. There's 4 different types and 4 different types, and some are animals, some are plants, but in addition to that there's also types going the other way. And looking at those tokens from across the board is a little bit difficult because I know once or twice it's happened that I thought one of the tokens that was on the board was something else. So I get what they were trying to do. They wanted to make a very classical look on it, but I think this is one spot where they should have just made them bolder colors or did something a little bit more visible to really help differentiate those things because you're trying to match up what's on the board versus what's on the main board. And sometimes, depending on the player count, not all of those things may be out there. So just a little bit difficult. I'm going to nitpick that one. I don't know if anybody else, David, do you have any
Yeah.
other comments?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, to kind of go along with you, Pete, I think that there's a huge flaw if you're just looking at the rule book itself, because there's only one player aid, and there's a lot of iconography in this game, kind of like you were alluding to, Pete. And to the fact that I got confused, I think, in one of the games that we played, I thought something meant something different, and then it didn't. But that's because there's only one player aid, and so I think for a game that's this complicated, that has this much iconography, I think it's like, how do you do that in today's modern board gaming world where you just have one player aid? It's almost, I feel like, a cardinal sin to do that. You should, if it's built for four people, how hard is it to just print that, four times? Because the player that they give you, I mean, it's a little pamphlet. And you starting to see games nowadays, they're giving you really good player aids. I think about SETI, and just how good that player aid is that everybody gets to keep. And I think it would alleviate a lot of these issues that I had when I was playing, because sometimes you just don't want to grab that, from somebody else and stuff like that. And so you're just assuming something is what it is, and then you're realizing, I guess not, and then you wasted a lot of time trying to accomplish that.
Yeah, and this is a pretty heavy game too, right? This is 3.9 out of 5 on the heaviness scale. There's a lot going on, and then you gotta try to figure out what all these icons are that you can barely see because they're tiny, right? Like you said,
They
the
are
different
tiny.
types of specimens. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the crew cards. I'm curious. I think, Pete, you're with me on this, but maybe not. I guess I don't want to speak for you, but the crew cards are those cards you get at the beginning. They help you. Okay, what does each your meeple start with? What kind of seal? But then each one of those, if you get two reds and a blue and a green seal on a certain meeple, then you get a certain benefit. I just think it's there's a couple things. Number one, it's one thing too many. Yeah, they give you a bonus. Some I think are better than others. That's something I always feel like maybe I say too much, but I feel like with everything else in this game, I don't need that. I've got enough going on. I'm probably only going to finish one, maybe two of those crew. Maybe I'll get better the more I play. I'd just rather play, other than getting the initial seals, I'd rather play without the crew cards than to have that as one extra thing that I really don't think about.
Yeah, I almost think that's like a false path a little bit. I mean, when I play this game, I think when I try to accomplish, I think one game I just spent, can I accomplish these things? Would it actually help me? I feel like every time I do that, I actually am not winning at all. I feel like it's a little bit of a trap that people can go down, especially new players the first time.
Yeah, you might get something for it, but was it really worth it? And I just feel like,
Probably
okay,
not.
yeah, maybe in the moment, yeah, wow, look what I got. And okay, well, how many turns did I waste that I could have done other things trying to get something?
Yeah, I agree. I think it can be a little bit of a red herring. I do know Dave pulled it off once where he completed it and he was able to move that beagle all the way from the end, all the way up to, or all the way from almost the beginning, all the way up to the end. But I think that's few and far between of the plays that I've been doing. I've just been ignoring that. To me, it's just not, the return on investment isn't really worth it. You're probably better off trying to diversify and maybe give yourself more options by having multiple kinds of colors on those different cards.
Yeah, I'll usually pick one crew card. I'll look for, okay, which one does it look like based on the round end goals? I'm going to be doing that anyway. Let me try to chase after that guy. I'm not trying to do all four. I'll try to pick one that synergizes, and I think, okay, that's a pretty powerful one. If I had to catch up to the Beagle, I'd probably chase after that one. That was a pretty powerful one. But for the most part, I'm ignoring it.
Yeah. I mean, another thing about this game, I think it's very beginner heavy or top heavy, meaning that at the start of the game, that board state, because of where those specimens were, how they are distributed on that bottom map, it really affects, I feel like, a lot of how that game's going to play out. And you have to actually put some thought into how you're going to start that game. I do think you can't necessarily win the game in the beginning, but you could certainly lose it. And to my other gripe is that I think that sometimes when I play this game, that there could be about halfway through the game, if somebody's just hitting, it's hard to catch up to them. I don't know if that's true because I haven't played it enough. But I know in the game, one of the games, Chris, that we played, I could see about an hour in, we were all just playing for second place because you were just firing. And then there's a little bit of thing when you get in the lead in this game, it's kind of hard because we're following some of the same paths to get back on that path,
Mhm.
to get back in front of you. And I do see a little bit of that in this game, that if a leader can emerge and get away from the pack, there's not much that the pack can do sometimes to rein him back in, unless they're really working together, which I'm not sure if that's how this game is called to play or not. But that one play experience that we had, I was like, oh, let's just throw in the towel. But I mean, we're all having fun doing other things. So it was a good time.
Yeah, the last thing I had here was get a good teacher or watch the right video when you're trying to learn this game. A lot of times I'll watch a video, I'll read the rule book sometimes afterwards. I'll do it in some order, but on this one, I was like, I'm just going to watch a video. It seems like a lot going on, and I was 15 minutes into this video, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And this was a video by someone typically, okay, I can follow him. Like I have no idea. I went to a different video of someone else that typically makes good videos, and it just clicked. And I was like, okay, I understand. And there's a lot going on, but if it's taught the right way, you can catch on and it makes sense. But man, if you watch the wrong video and it's not making the sense, go to another video because it's a lot to learn. Don't waste your time trying to learn it from someone who can't teach it.
BGA has a great implementation of this, and I think their tutorial is fairly good. I got the base of what I needed, and the rest is really exploration. But once you figure out how to start chaining those actions together, that's when it starts to sing for you. And if you figure that out, you're going to be in a good way.
Speaking of BGA, I think you play this solo on BGA, Pete? Did you tell me you played it solo?
I've played it solo a number of times,
Okay.
and that implementation is pretty good because the the computer will do actions. I'm sure it's probably following the automa that it has, but it works out really well. I've done fairly good at it.
Yeah, the reason I asked is I was looking through the rule book to see, well, how do you play it solo? And my God, it's like 475 pages of solo rules of he does this, but he only does this. And I was like, okay, I will play that on Board Game Arena where some computer can do all those things. I am not doing that by hand. So if someone out there can play solo by hand, great. I am not investing the time to learn the 751 rules to go along with that.
I mean, I'm just gonna have one last gripe about this game, and maybe it's just I think there's sometimes in the game where if you are last in turn order, that there's just no good spots to go. I mean, I think about a lot of times the last round or even the last place. I mean, you're just placing a guy and sometimes there's just nothing because either you built him wrong and so people were cutthroat to you early and you just have nowhere for somebody to go, and maybe that's just a fault of the player, but it's still something that I feel like there's some actions that I feel like they just don't give you anything, and resources are so tight in this game that there's not a good spot just to go to. I feel like to just go to if everybody else has kind of screwed you over, to put it in a better sense.
Yeah, and you do have the ability to look at someone else's board and say, okay,
Yeah.
he's only got a red and a yellow seal on that. I'm keeping him from going where, the one place he can go and be meaningful. You can certainly do that.
Well, if I remember correctly, too, bidding for that turn order can make a difference as well. That is one of the options you can go to. However, I will agree, it feels like a wasted turn, especially when you're using a fairly powerful meeple that you have and you got to put it there. But it's like so many games, going first really makes a difference. So I know in a couple of the games that we played, we fought over that a little bit. And I remember Dave saying, "Oh, I'm last again. How did I get last?" Which forces you to take that take that action and try to get it
Yeah.
at the head of the line again.
Yeah, but I mean, specifically, I'm talking about like the last round of the game, because if you're the last person in the last round of the game, there's no points for being the first player. There's nothing. And so sometimes that powerful person that you might have left on your board is just kind of a waste. Just kind of throwing it away. If you got screwed in that turn order, there's just nowhere you can go on this board at that time. So, but that's the only other thing. I mean, other than that, I mean, the game, you just shouldn't put yourself in that position, I guess.
Yeah, there's a few games that do that where it's not the last round, but the second to last round, taking that sacrifice to get that first player so you can move first. And those are some hard decisions that you got to make. Yeah.
Well, David, this game is a little over 2 years old at this point. Take us to the
Yeah.
collector's corner. What do you see?
Yeah, so this game is a little bit harder to find than Carnegie. Just looking on Amazon, you can't even find it there. So, I looked around. I would say the best, I don't even see it at some of the local board game stores. I don't know if it went out of print. I do know that, since a lot of people are listening to us and, I don't want to give individual store names. I know there's a couple stores around here that still have it, but eBay actually has some copies of this, which I feel like we're a decent price. I'm going to throw it out there. There's a couple copies that were going for $60 on eBay, brand new and free shipping. So I thought that was a decent deal if you want to get your hands on this game, but it's a little bit harder to find. On the used market right now, it's going anywhere between $40 and $45 if you can find a copy of it. But it's a little bit more sparse than I thought it would be, especially because it's just been out for 2 years.
Yeah, I've been looking, and I haven't found the one that says, okay, I'm going to grab it for that price. But this for me is a game. I'll start with the final thoughts. This for me is a game that I am going to buy this eventually. If we were doing a top 15 right now, it would be in my top 15. We just happened to play this after we did that for the first time. And once I get it, it's probably going to go into my top 5. I really, really enjoyed this game. I'm looking forward to being able to get it on my shelf so that I can get it on the table on a regular basis. Pete, how about yourself?
Well, I'm not going to dive into my thoughts too much because I kind of want to keep that as a surprise when we do the battle on what I think about the game. So I'm
Killing the
just going to
format
leave it.
here, man.
I'm just kind of leaving that right up. I think it is a good game, maybe even a great game. David.
Yeah, I remember telling Chris, and maybe even you, Pete, but I remember specifically telling Chris about this game and be like, hey, we should get to the table. And I don't know if you were as interested, Chris, but now that it's been on the table, I'm glad to see that you really like it. I would love to get into the expansion. I heard the expansion does a lot in this game. It's actually a real expansion. And I feel like, that's something that, I wouldn't mind seeing at the table. But I do think it's a really good game. It's a really tight Euro. And, I'm excited to see what this battle has in store.
Yeah, well, guys, I think I'm starting to lose my sea legs here, so let's head on over to today's Battle of the Funnest. All right, everyone, the moment of truth has arrived. We're separating the men from the boys and the games from the toys as we pit these games head to head against each other in the ultimate face-off. In one corner, weighing in at 3.8 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.0. Refined for more like never before, building projects and rails on a whole new scale, the philanthropic hot topic, the dominating donor, the VIP of the USD, the real deal of steel with a freewheel bookmobile, Carnegie. In the other corner, weighing in at 3.9 out of 5 with an overall BGG rating of 8.1. Evolving over millennia from the order Rodentia, hopping theories like dominoes as it sails the Galapagos, the big cheese of species, the finder of fossils, the evolutionary revolutionary Darwin's journey. And now let's see which game makes history in today's Battle of the Funnest Showdown. All right, for anyone new to the show, we evaluate these games head-to-head in 5 different categories. We start with theme and production, move on to mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and finish it off with the fun factor. The game that gets the most votes wins each category, and the game that wins the most categories takes the prize in our Battle of the Funnest. So let's get this historic battle started. We'll begin with theme and production. Pete.
So for theme and production on this, first I'm going to start with production. I think both of these have fantastic production. The only nitpick that I have is some of those tiles in Darwin's Journey. But with that being said, I really think the theme comes through with Darwin's Journey much more than Carnegie. Not that Carnegie theme is not good, but I just think the theme is more appealing to more people in Darwin's Journey. So that's my vote. Darwin's Journey for theme and production. David, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so for theme and production, I do think these are pretty close. When I look across the theme, I think they both incorporated well. I come from a business background, so I actually like the Carnegie theme. I think that it does a very good job of, hey, you're sending people out, you're doing research, and then you're getting those people back, and then they're going out on more missions. I do like that. The theme of Darwin's Journey, I think it's really great too. I think both of them incorporate them really well. So for me, it just comes down to the little stuff, the nitpicks, because I really do think that they're pretty equal in my eyes. And the player aid, I just can't get over the player aid fact that there's only one in one game and it's just not good. And so, I think that game needs a player aid versus, Carnegie. I don't think there's as much iconography in Carnegie, but in Darwin's Journey, there's a lot of stuff. And so for that small nitpick, if they would just put in 4 instead of 1, maybe it flips me. But for right now, I'm going to go with Carnegie for this one. Chris, what do you think?
So Carnegie has no player aids, and we are constantly having to look things up to say, okay, what does this thing actually do before we draft it? I'll say that a little bit, but I mentioned earlier the theme in Darwin's Journey. I love science when a game's based on a scientific theme, and it's actually a really, really good game. That's gold to me. So Darwin's Journey does have a huge advantage there. Carnegie is also an interesting theme, and I think it does a really good job incorporating it in. Things make sense. I talked about that earlier. The theme doesn't quite speak as much to me, though. From a production standpoint, I agree with you, Pete. They're both pretty good. Carnegie does a pretty good job. Those sliding project tabs are pretty cool. In general, though, I have no production issues with either game, so it comes down to theme. So this one is Darwin's Journey for me, which means Darwin's Journey takes theme and production. We'll go on to mechanisms, and I'll kick it to David.
Yeah, so for mechanisms for me, I'm just going to focus on the one that I like best, and that is Carnegie, just because I love trying to have the ability to predict what people are going to try to do with the action selection. And to me, like, that just makes the game. And if you don't like that, you probably don't like this game because a lot of it plays off of that. I just think it does it so well and how it's incorporated and just the timing element that just comes into play there. I think Darwin's Journey does a lot of great stuff, but I've seen a lot of combo-tastic games and it does it very well for what it does. But I've seen that before and I've seen a little bit of it here and there. I just really like this action selection mechanism. It's like being mean without being mean, but being mean. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Carnegie. I'm going to kick it over to Chris.
Yeah, the I choose you follow mechanism, it works for you. It doesn't work for me. It irritates me, especially at those higher player counts where so much is just determined by somebody else. I feel handcuffed. I do like, though, in Carnegie, the mechanism, sending out employees on missions, bringing them back later, trying to get the timing right. That is definitely a plus there for me. For Darwin's Journey, though, I really like the wax seal mechanism. Before Pete gives his opinion, I want to remind him how much we both like the wax seal mechanism. So each meeple has its own capabilities. It's not a single tech track. There's a lot going on in Darwin's Journey, but I feel like with all of that going on, they all mesh really well. They do in Carnegie too, but I enjoy the mechanisms a little more in Darwin's Journey. So I'm going with Darwin's Journey. It's 1-1. Pete, where are you at here for
Wait, before
mechanisms?
Pete goes, I just want to remember to remind him that there are tech points that you could allocate out in different ways, right? And that is a great part of the game. We didn't even talk about that, but I just thought I'd reference that against the little seals that you can get. You can distribute your tech points any way you want. Go ahead, Pete.
You guys both have great points. And to be totally fair and honest, both of those are considerations for me. The thing that I do like about Darwin's Journey, probably the best thing, is that the wax seal and that unique worker, almost kind of like creating a worker and what his strength is going to be. As far as Carnegie, I just love the way that the mechanics all work together and there's a whole process behind the whole thing. And this one was really close for me too. And I'm glad you guys pointed that out. But I'm gonna give the nudge on this one to Carnegie, only because I think there are some of the mechanics in Darwin's Journey that as you're going through and making your moves, some of that feels quite scripted to me, especially those first moves. And then also when you don't have a great place to put your worker. So I just think the mechanics are a little bit more tied together in Carnegie. So Carnegie's going to get my vote just by a little bit. So I think that'll tie us up.
Yeah, I stopped listening to you after you said Carnegie, Pete, but I heard that. So Carnegie 2-1 over Darwin's Journey for mechanisms. We have a 1-1 tie. We move on to value for your time. I'll start this one. Y'all already know what I'm going to say. Carnegie and all the plays that we've done, my average has been 2 hours and 15 minutes. Darwin's Journey was actually a little shorter, but not by much, 2 hours and 5 minutes. So they're about the same time. Carnegie's frustrating for me. Darwin's Journey is satisfying. That's how I want to spend my time. I know I sound like a broken record. Darwin's Journey for me. Pete.
All right. Well, I'm going to agree with you, Chris. Value for my time is going to be Darwin's Journey. And I really have the average time on that is about 2 hours for 4 players. And Carnegie's a little bit heavier. I feel for a deeper game, I get the same feeling. I think I just get a little bit more value when it comes to Darwin's Journey. David.
Pete, I just want to say that you are no longer dead to me. You're back off my list. All right, David.
Pete, this is your number one game. I'd like to remind you. Anyways, value for my time. Yeah, they both play right around that 2 hour mark. There's not a time that I wouldn't play either of these games. I think they're that good. But for me, I'm going to give the edge to Carnegie. I just like playing it more. I feel like both of the times, though, when we say the game plays in 2 hours, I don't feel the 2 hours. When I sit down at both of the tables, the game is flying for me. And, if that's important to you when you sit down at a table, I think, it's like, hey, I look down, I'm like, wow, 2 hours just went by. That's what these games are to me. So just by a hair, I'll give it to Carnegie.
All right, doesn't matter, David. Darwin's Journey takes value for your time, 2-1. Every one of these close. Darwin's Journey now has a 2-1 lead overall. We'll go to replayability, and I'll kick it right back to David.
Ooh, replayability. This is interesting. To be honest, I don't know if I played Darwin's Journey enough yet and seen enough to necessarily give it the win yet. I think it could get there if I played it a little bit more. I think I played Carnegie a tad bit more, and I feel like it's always different because I'm basing it off of what players are doing. And so to me, that is the replayability sometimes that I'm looking for. Not necessarily all the randomness that the game can throw in or the chips or the different stuff, but it's the players at the table that make that game so interesting to me. And every game turns out vastly different. And so for that reason, I feel like it has that over. I'm not sure if Darwin's Journey can necessarily do that because of how the mechanisms are built, but for that reason, I'm going to give it over to Carnegie. I'm going to kick it back to Chris.
Yeah. Any guesses which way I'm going here? I happen to think replayability for Darwin's Journey is pretty high. Carnegie, though, can really be pretty different with all the different departmentals that can come out. You can play with A and B sides on the project tabs. If you get the expansion, there's even more of those. You can customize your starting resources. At the same time, you go to the map, and I feel like with the map and the transportation tracks, every time we play, we're always doing the same things. Starting at certain places, you're trying to make certain connections. We're always doing the same thing on the transportation tracks. And I just feel like that is samey. I'm keeping my pattern. I'm going with Darwin's Journey. I'm kicking it to Pete.
All right. Well, I'm going to be dead to Chris again, I think. Replayability. This one for me, for some of the same reasons that David said, just that timeline, setting up the game, and each game can really feel a lot different. You may have to go into areas that, they're not always super balanced. There's some areas you're going to go to more than others. And I said this in the other one. The one thing that I liked about Darwin's Journey is that flow. You kind of get that comfortableness, and there's a flow. I'm going to do this and then do that. But for me, replayability, I've played each of these a lot on BGA, and I started to get a little tired of Darwin's Journey just because I felt like there's not much difference. I go to this spot, then I know I'm going to go up and explore a little bit here. I'm going to try to grab this and then do that. And David, as you said, the interaction with other people, what they take, what you're trying to go for, I think is just more for me when it comes to replayability. Carnegie.
All right, Pete.
Pete, you're alive again. I like it. You came back from the grave, man. I appreciate it.
I don't know.
This is a tough one.
Yeah. Carnegie takes replayability 2-1. Pete, you're still in my top 100 podcast hosts. I promise. Okay. But we're going to go to fun factor. I'm going to kick this one off just so that by the time it gets back to me, it's not already decided.
You got your vote in.
I've said it multiple times. Carnegie's frustrating to me. I don't have fun playing it. Fun is different than enjoying playing a game. I'm looking at fun. Carnegie's not fun. Carnegie's frustrating. It is struggling, period. Darwin's Journey, I mentioned earlier, it's going to be in my top 15. It's there now. And once I buy this and start playing it, there's a chance that I will feel the same thing as you, Pete. But for now, I enjoy that. Part of it's the theme, part of it's the mechanisms. It gives me plenty of opportunity to be clever. And we talked about chaining, and I love when you have the opportunities to chain actions together and pull off big moves that might be leading up to another big move at the end of a future round or something like that. I literally enjoy every minute of that game. It's 5 for 5 for me, every one of my votes for Darwin's Journey. Now, David, every one of your votes has been for Carnegie. So I'm going to go to you next before we go to Pete. So, David.
Okay, yeah. So for everything that Chris just said, no, I'm just messing. I'm gonna go the opposite way, and only because I like big moments in games, and I look back at the plays. I will say that the game that we all got our butts kicked by Chris and Darwin's Journey, that was a pretty big moment because he was just, you could see it in Chris's eyes that things were just finally clicking for him, and they were clicking at such a high scale that I was like, oh man, we're going to get obliterated this game. And it was kind of fun to watch, just seeing all those connections happen and finally click for you. I think, though, with Carnegie, I just can't get over the fact that sometimes when people place that selection marker, the groans at the table, because it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he went there. Like, that to me is just always fun. I mean, I don't care what it is, or the fact that like sometimes you're bluffing in that game and you're trying to set it up so it doesn't look like you want somebody to select something, and then they select it, and you're inside, you're like, oh, thank goodness. But in the outside, you're trying not to show it. I know. I love it. I just can't get over
pleasure
it.
in other people's pain.
I just love the groans at the table, especially when people select things. I can't get over it. It's a great part of the game for me. It's great fun, because I might be hurting, but as long as somebody's hurting more than me, I just find that funny. So I'm going to go with Carnegie. I have fun, though, playing both of these games, and I look forward to playing both of them a lot more. And it's weird that I voted all 5, like you said, for Carnegie, because I didn't think that coming in. I thought but everyone's been really close. I mean, really close. I'm going to kick it over to Pete.
Before you go, no, I'm not trying to influence. We go. No, seriously, I'm just making some general commentary on the way the voting has gone. I agree 100%. These games are close, even though I've been kind of saying, hey, it's frustrating to me on Carnegie. Carnegie's a really good game. And again, if you said, hey, we're going to play Carnegie, I'd sit down and play it, and I would continue to develop my abilities. But just looking at how close these are, we go by categories. We're sitting at 2-2. If I look at individual votes, it's 7-7. right now on each game. These are very close games. It's a very tight battle. Pete, the fate of the universe, or at least this episode, is relying on your decision to choose Darwin's Journey as the fun fact. Go ahead, make your choice.
No, as I said earlier, this was all of these decisions were tough. Carnegie is my favorite game this year, and I didn't want to give too much away. And it really comes down to what are you looking for in fun? And my type of fun, I know, is different than Chris's type of fun, which is different than David's type of fun. And what it's really going to come down to me is what am I going to enjoy the most if I'm bringing other people to the table? And as much as this pains me to say, because Carnegie is my favorite, I'm going to go with Darwin's Journey being a tad bit more fun when it comes to just an
How much money is Chris
enjoyable
paying
type
you?
game.
Checks in the mail, buddy. Hey, no.
It is, but again, I really do try to evaluate the games in these categories and weigh them. There are games that I really love, but some categories are just better than the other. And again, when it comes down to fun factor, to me, that's the interaction that I get with people. And when I'm sitting there, I think in general, as much as David and I love to go head to head and really battle each other out, I think overall, Darwin's Journey is going to give more people a more fun experience than Carnegie. So there you have it.
I had to scratch out your vote. I already had you written down as Carnegie. I had the winner. I'm flabbergasted. I about passed out. All right. So Pete blows my mind, chooses Darwin's Journey. Darwin's Journey takes the fun factor, and that's going to do it with the score of 3-2 in a very, very, very close battle. Darwin's Journey evolves again and wins today's Battle of the Funnest Showdown. Guys, I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming at all at the end.
I thought that was going to win.
How much money is exchanging over there under the table? Chris, you could have paid me for my vote. I would have gone Carnegie at the end. I mean, Darwin's Journey.
Hey, that's the beauty of Venmo. You don't have to send a check in the mail. I can shoot something in Pete's direction and impact things real time. So that's going to bring us to the end of yet another episode of the Fifth People Board Game Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and if you'd like to get in touch, just email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media. Of course, if you like our show, we'd love it if you give us a 5-star review to help us grow. Thanks as always for listening, and until next time, remember, charity begins at home, but it shouldn't stay there. Goodbye, everyone.
Adios, amigos.
Goodbye, everybody.